It's Phil's Pop Culture Podcast.
Watching television.
A dynamite place to be.
Dynamite!
Sponsored by Vandelay Industries, importers and exporters of fine latex products since 1992. And now, the man who taught Frank Burns how to eat worms, here's your host, Phil Kahn.
And thank you, John Meany, wherever you are. I am indeed Phil Kahn, and I welcome you to the latest episode of Phil's Pop Culture Podcast. While he's perhaps best known for playing Kramer's buddy and former Punky Brewster stand-in Mickey Abbott on Seinfeld, Danny Woodburn has appeared in more than 130 TV shows and 28 movies. He's had a 20-year stand-up comedy act. He's done voiceover work. And he's been a strong advocate for the disability rights movement. I had the pleasure of chatting recently with the multi-talented Danny. Let's take a listen to our fun chat. Hi, Danny. Thanks so much for being with me today.
Hey, Phil. No problem, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I have to give a shout-out to our mutual friend Vince DePaul, who connected us. You and Vince go way back, don't you?
Well, he and I were in the hospital at the same time, but when we first met, he was a baby, and he doesn't really remember me from then. I have a few years on him, so
do you know?
He was 2. He was 2 when I met him.
Oh, wow.
And then I ran into him again, I guess in the late 90s, and that's what he remembers me from, the late 90s. He was much cuter as a 2-year-old. He was much cuter as a 2-year-old than now.
So he'd say the same thing about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the pictures to prove it.
Oh, you'll have to send them to me. I can include it on my website. Anyhow, thanks so much for being with me. I was almost going to address you as Dr. Woodburn because my understanding is that you almost became a veterinarian. Is that true?
Yeah, I think everybody goes through that phase, but I think I carried it all the way through high school because all I did was focus on math and science, and I had it in my head that I was going to get in the medical profession in some way or another, and I even went so far as to apply to medical school, apply to pre-med.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So what changed your mind?
Well, I spent a lot of downtime after high school because I had to have some surgery on my legs. So I think it just sort of motivated me to think about what I really wanted to do with my life, and I ended up applying instead to theater and film school.
And you've certainly used that and taken off with it, of course. Obviously, and I want to talk to you about your appearances on Seinfeld, and that's perhaps what you're best known for. But you've done a whole lot of other things. You've been on 130-plus television shows, 28 movies. You've had a long stand-up comedy career, voiceover work. I don't think there's anything you haven't done.
No, not yet. I mean, let's see. I haven't been a physical character in a video game. How about that? I voiced Master Splinter in a video game, but I haven't been me in a video game.
Well, if anybody out there is listening and can help Danny out, please give him a call or send him an email on his website.
Yeah.
So let's dive in, and then we can get it out of the way, because I'm sure everybody just wants to know about Seinfeld. How'd you get the part?
It was actually my first sitcom. I think I only had a couple of television shows under my belt at that point. Mm-hmm. I had done an episode of Hunter. I had done an episode of a couple episodes of Murder, She Wrote.
Oh.
I worked on a little independent kids movie. I didn't have a lot of experience on camera at that time. Maybe 4 or 5 different things, but I'd never done a sitcom. So I went and auditioned, and I auditioned for Brian Myers. Brian Myers was the assistant to Mark Hirschfeld casting. Mm-hmm. And, you got to make it over the humps. So I made it over the preliminary hump.
Yeah.
And then I went into the next hump, and then I finally got to meet and audition for Jerry and Larry.
Ah, Larry David, yeah.
Yeah. And this was on a Monday, late morning, and there was about 5 of us, I think, vying for the same part. They had narrowed it down to about 5 of us, and Larry and David told me to wait in the inner office.
Ooh.
And I thought, oh, that's a good sign. I'm going to wait in the inner office, not the outer office. And plus, I'm being told to wait.
That's good.
I waited around while he went through the rest of the actors that were auditioning, and then they came out and told me I was going to start work right away.
What was your reaction? It must have been surreal.
I was, at the time, the show was #1. They were getting unbelievable ratings. You don't even get these kind of ratings anymore. They were getting 22 million viewers every week.
Wow.
So that's like unheard of. Those are like Super Bowl numbers back then.
Yeah.
So, it was pretty remarkable to be on the #1 show and be asked to play such a cool character, such a interesting role,
Indeed. Mickey Abbott.
multifaceted, as it were, yeah.
A stand-in for Punky Brewster.
When all the use was nothing.
That's right. Now, they had you back. You were in, I think, 7 total episodes, right?
Yeah, I did the finale, which was a 2-parter. I'm in a couple of clip shows. And then there's the race, the wait out, the stand-in, the yada yada, and the burning. Those are my episodes.
Oh, yeah. I have to say that your chemistry with Michael Richards is amazing, but what I love the most is the physical comedy between the two of you. There's one episode where you're fighting over 2 different women, and you can't decide which one wants which one, and you're at a restaurant, and you start tackling each other. That was so funny.
I have to say that probably, like when I watched that, I think, did we even rehearse it? I felt like we rehearsed it all week, but
Yeah.
It was totally organic, the way that rolled out, and I can tell because I'm like, when he's bringing me down, I'm like, I'm holding on for dear life because I just don't want to smash my head. And he's a strong, he's a very strong physical comedian. So,
Yeah.
But, that first episode that we did together, there was a lot of physical rehearsal about what we were going to do. And finally we settled on what I think the funniest thing was just to sort of go at each other mano a mano, like we're equal combatants,
Was that the episode where he had the jeans that were too tight?
No, that was it was one where I just sort of come at him and he grabs me, and I call him a big ape. You're a big ape, and he grabs me and I grab him, and you can see our bodies are flailing about in that moment, like we're about to come to blows until we are, broken up. But my body is being flailed about by Michael. He's doing all the physical work of moving me all left and right. And I'm just basically holding on to him to make sure I don't fall down.
Holding on for dear life. It's funny that you say that, yeah, you rehearsed through the week, but it was kind of almost like you were winging it. I had heard that Michael, being quite the perfectionist, would rehearse over and over and over again. That wasn't the case with you two?
We would definitely, he would, usually when you work on a sitcom, you work on your scenes, and then people go back to their dressing room or whatever, and then come back out again. I would hang out on set rather than march all the way back to my dressing room, because I like to watch everybody else do their work.
Sure.
And every chance he got, he would come over to me and go, "Daddy, let's go over here and rehearse this a little bit." So, but by the time we got to that double dating episode, I think we had it down, how we would be with each other. So when I say it developed organically, that was episode 5. So it had developed organically after doing it 5 times with each other. So it was good.
Yeah, the chemistry is great. My favorite episode with you in it is the one where you get gigs as like actors for medical students, and he gets gonorrhea.
Yeah. Yeah.
You two are hysterical in that.
Jason Alexander is a big fan of the original Star Trek with William Shatner. So my performance for cirrhosis of the liver is a William Shatner impression.
Oh, yeah! Now that you say that, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So that was sort of my homage to Jason and his wife, because they were big Shatner fans.
Oh, that's great. Now I'm going to have to go back and watch that scene again. Yeah.
Yeah, now you go, oh, I see what he's doing, yeah. What did I drink for all those years?
Right. So what was your favorite episode?
I think, that's definitely one of my favorites, but probably the Yada Yada is my favorite, the double dating one.
Oh.
It was a lot of funny business, but,
So,
yeah.
of course, when you tell friends about that episode, you probably skip over parts and say yada yada, right?
Yeah, exactly. I don't have to explain it. I think another reason for the chemistry between us is because, when you start rehearsal on a sitcom, the day starts with a table read. The actors sit around the table and read the parts, and it's not physical at all.
Mm-hmm.
But Michael made a choice to stand up in that moment as if he was going to fight with me, and then so I followed suit with him, and so we sort of started to go at it across the table during the table read. So I think we knew at that point it was going to be a successful marriage of our comedy styles together.
Absolutely. Comic genius, I think. And boy, that's really propelled you on to other things. You've done practically everything. I know you were in one of the versions of the film Conan with, I believe, or Conan is Conan O'Brien. Conan the Barbarian with Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
I think you've acted with Robin Williams. Tell me about some of those experiences.
Conan the Barbarian was a television series that we did 20 years ago now, that I was down in Mexico shooting that. We did about 22 episodes. It's out on DVD. It's a bit nostalgic of that era, of Hercules and Xena, Warrior Princess, all those. It was in that whole era of that genre.
Yep.
That was one of the hardest shows I ever worked on physically. But it was looking back, it was a heck of a lot of fun, and I still have relationships with a couple of my co-stars from that time. I got to work with really interesting people. That Eddie Albert Jr. was on our show. Mickey Rooney did an episode of our show.
No way.
Marriott Hartley. Andrew Devoff, who's a great character actor. He was on the show. It's an interesting, I think, trivia piece to go back and look and go, oh my God, there's that guy,
Yeah. The last guy, I don't recognize his name. I'll have to look him up after we get off the line here.
Andrew Devoff is in Air Force One. He plays one of the main villains that fights with Harrison Ford.
Oh.
He's he looks like your consummate Russian spy.
Gotcha. And he's been a Russian spy in every movie ever made about Russian spies, probably.
Probably, yeah.
So, talk about your comedy career, your stand-up comedy career. You've worked the Improv and the Comedy Store, and how'd you get into that?
My mom gave me a book before I moved to California, a book on stand-up and, how to sort of structure your comedy. Because Mom thought I was funny, so she thought, you should try this. And I studied the book, and then I took a course with the person who wrote the book. It's a comedian, Judy Carter. Judy was very active in the 80s as a stand-up. She still works, but, she was pretty well known throughout the 80s and early 90s. Yep. So she gave a course, and then at the end of the course, the objective is to get on stage and do 5 minutes. And I had a really good set, and I think if I didn't have a really good set, I would have probably gave it up right away. Because, it's a terrible, terrible feeling to bomb. I bombed plenty of times after that, but my first 2 times on stage were very successful. The second time, I had to write another 5 minutes, and I went into the contest, and I won the contest my second time on stage.
Oh, that's great.
So I thought, okay, maybe this is something. So I pursued a lot of clubs in Los Angeles, and I did a couple of road gigs. I was never on the road for very long because, especially after Seinfeld, I kept getting asked to do other projects, so I didn't want to leave town much.
Right.
I wanted to stay available.
Now, as I said at the very beginning, you've done a little bit of everything. Your movie career, you seem to have shifted to the role of like the curmudgeonly, grumpy kind of character. It seems to suit you. Is that an accurate portrayal of a lot of the roles you've played?
I think it's just an accurate portrayal of my persona. What specifically are you referring to?
Oh, no, nothing in particular.
Well, it's interesting. I play a wide range of things. I have a series of kids' movies by the producers and writers of Air Bud.
Yeah.
I have like the Santa Buddies and Santa Pups. It's all those sort of talking dogs Christmas movies. So I have that series where I'm not curmudgeonly. I'm sort of as I say, drunk with Christmas kind of character. And then, so there's that character. But I think because of the volatility of Mickey Abbott, I've been cast a lot as that sort of, I played a few assholes in my day.
I'm not trying to typecast you, Danny. You're like, anybody out there listening, I can do a lot of other kinds of roles.
I played the sweet fatherly type to the big figure character in The Watchmen. So I'm lucky that I've gotten to play so many different kinds of things,
Yes, you are.
Master Splinter was sort of a fatherly role.
Talk a little bit more about that.
That was a tough show. It was a lot of physical stuff, and it was those guys that played the turtles. They were all like always in full training, training mode, eating, watching everything they eat, because even though it's a lot of CGI effects, it was a physically taxing work environment. The sewers were not the safest place to be, even though it was built on a soundstage. It wasn't the safest place to be walking around. People have taken spills, and a movie set they're a very dangerous place to be.
Sure.
For example, when I was filming Conan, we were in a fight sequence in like a river, and at the end of the river, this one part of the stream, there's a waterfall. It's about 20 feet down.
Okay.
And we had done a whole sequence where we were in the fight sequence, and we were fighting the computer effect monster that we don't ever see, but we're swinging our swords at it and what have you, and it's in the water with us. And during that sequence, my co-star, Robert McCrae, got wedged. He was fighting with a staff, and his staff came down between either end of this narrow waterfall, and it held him in place. The water was so, powerful, it held his body on top of that staff, and he's an ex-Navy SEAL, and I happened to just float up behind him and grab him in the scene and pull him back as if I was saving him from the waterfall. But truth be told, I was adjusting the water flow so that he was able to get off the waterfall.
Oh.
So I kind of did save him in a way, but right after that, the director put a tether line around my chest just to be on the safe side because of that waterfall. And wouldn't you know it, between takes, the waterfall, I wore a cape, and the waterfall caught my cape and pulled me right over.
Oh, no.
And I felt the tautness of the rope, so there was about 4 or 5 guys trying to pull me up out of it.
Oh, God.
And it would have been about a 20-foot drop straight down on my head. But gratefully I had this tether line on me, and boom, I was pulled up out of it. And one of the guys that grabbed my hand as I reached my hand up out of the water was my co-star, Robert McCrae, who I just diverted moments before. So my point was that sets can be very dangerous, and you have to really just sort of be aware. Even on Seinfeld, I remember one episode that I was on, a light came down on Larry's head.
Oh, my God.
And split his head open.
You're kidding. Ouch. Jeez. I didn't know it was such a dangerous business, Danny.
I actually, as a good luck charm, I make it a point to walk under ladders.
Get it out of the way?
I do. I just walk under one ladder. Whenever I see a ladder that's up and open, I make it a point to walk under it. And then I feel like, okay, that's kind of good luck for me, so I'll do it that way.
There you go.
Don't ask me why. It's my set ritual.
Well, whatever works for you. You know, I want to talk about some of your advocacy work. I was reading somewhere, and perhaps it was an interview you did or a blog, that 25% of the population, or somewhere around there, could be classified as disabled, and yet like 2 or 3% of actors, actresses that are represented in movies and films fall into that category. You're well underrepresented. Am I close with those statistics?
Yeah, it's 20% of the population. So it's just shy of 20% of the U.S. population is represented by a person with disability.
Yep.
And I wrote a paper last year with the Ruderman Family Foundation addressing employment of people with disabilities in television. And so we discovered that, it hovers in between 95 and 98% unemployment for people with disability. So things are changing, but it's a very slow process, and unfortunately, it hasn't been progressive. Like, I know I started advocating for this some 15 years ago, and we watch the numbers go up, go down, go up, go down, whereas the numbers of other minority groups are always sort of steadily climbing.
Yeah.
But people with disabilities are not.
Why do you think that is?
I'm sorry?
Why do you think that is?
Well, there's a number of factors. One, access to employment. I've gone in for roles for characters in a wheelchair where the audition is on the second floor and there's no elevator.
Oh my God.
So if you're auditioning a character in a wheelchair, but there's no elevator, you're not going to bring an actor in a wheelchair into that role.
Jeez. Hello?
So we talk about, one of the problems is access. Another problem is access to education. Another problem is access to employment outside of the world of film and television. So when you talk about the actor waiting tables or the actor with the day job, it's when the minority of the disabled population is in the workforce, that becomes another factor. So if you have a 66% unemployment rate as it is, the idea of supporting yourself as you make your way in this business becomes less likely. And there's also a lot of stigma around people with disabilities. Still a lot of misunderstanding. We get lumped into one category. Whether if you're in a wheelchair, if you're a wheelchair user, you're right away limited to this much mobility in people's minds. If you're a person with autism, then we're not understanding the facts that autism presents itself in a multitude of ways, that it's individual, and people are not addressing or looking at the individual, they're looking at the disability first.
Right.
So that becomes an issue. So
for a while,
what we can do is,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We just keep trying to raise awareness of these issues, and when we see actors portraying characters with disability and winning Academy Award after Academy Award for those kinds of roles, and people in the disabled community find a lot of these kinds of roles too to be filled with, these sort of staged tropes of disability that people that are able-bodied are more willing to accept because they see the world of disability through a much more filtered lens than actual people with disability.
Indeed.
So there's so many factors. I'd have to talk to you for about 2 days.
Well, I'll have you back on again. I'll have you back on again. But back to your career, you got a couple of upcoming. I think I saw a photo of you today. You're going to be appearing on The Bold and the Beautiful. Which one are you playing, The Bold or the Beautiful?
Well, I'm going to be more bold on this one. see if they have me back and try to beautify me up. Yeah, they offered me a chance to come in, and in fact, I was speaking to CBS casting people about issues of diverse employment of people with disability, and from that talk came the opportunity to go and be on Bold and Beautiful. So
that's great.
I'm excited about it. It's going to be on the 19th and the 20th, and then tonight I'm going to a movie premiere that's going to be at Screamfest in Hollywood. It's the biggest horror film festival on the West Coast.
Oh.
And it's a movie called Dead Ant.
Dead Ant?
Dead Ants, yeah, like Dead Ant, Dead Ant, Dead Ant, Dead Ant, Dead Ant.
Oh. That's great.
So it's the story of a has-been hair band making their way to Coachella, but they end up encountering horrific, giant, man-eating ants.
Oh, my God. That's got Academy Award written all over it.
Well, it's a lot of fun. It's campy, it's scary, it's funny. It's got Tom Arnold and Sean Astin and Jake Busey and Leisha Hendley and who else is in it? Michael Horse. Michael Horse plays opposite me. We play a couple of guys in the middle of nowhere selling shrooms to the unsuspecting hairband.
Didn't you do that in real life for a while? You can draw on that experience.
Yeah. No, I sold Cowboy Boots. That was what I sold in real life.
Seriously?
Yeah, that's my last day job, selling Cowboy Boots.
Yeah, it's a living, right?
Back in the early 90s, Cowboy Boots were very popular in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I'll have to dig up some old photos and use them in this podcast.
Yeah. The only time I ever wore them was at work. I couldn't bear to be in them. In fact, I ended up with, like, Achilles tendonitis because of the damn things.
Oh, jeez. You didn't put lifts in them, did you? Ha 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 ha.
Yeah. I lasted 3 months, and then I started working on a movie, the little movie with Mr. T and Cheech Marin, and then from the movie, then I went to do Seinfeld, and then after that, I never had another day job.
Lucky you. Now, you also have something coming out. It's a Disney project, Crash and Bernstein. What's that about?
Oh, yeah, we did that. That was a couple of years ago. It was a kids series on Disney XD. It was really, really cute. When you talk about curmudgeon, I played sort of a nasty landlord maintenance guy. Sort of, if you will, like a mean version of Snyder from One Day at a Time.
Harrington.
But I worked with a lot of wonderful kids, and all those kids have gone on to better things. The little girl in that, McKenna Grace, she's on that Kiefer Sutherland show, and she's
Designated Survivor.
Yeah, and then Landry Bender, she's got her own series right now too. So,
see, when I saw this Disney project, I thought it was in the offing. I guess I'm not up on my Disney shows. I didn't know it was a couple of years ago. My bad.
Yeah, we did it from 2013, 2012, 2013. It was a few years back.
Gotcha.
The kids are grown up now almost.
So what other projects are in the offing that you can talk about?
I worked on a film called Anthem, which is a sweet little independent. Juliette Lewis is in that, and some young upstart performers. Sort of a road trip for a young kid finding himself who is able to prophesize other people's demise.
Gotcha.
And I play a truck driver. I play a not creepy truck driver. How about that?
Well, I thought truck drivers are creepy by definition, I thought. I'm just kidding.
Well, I start off a little creepy, but I turn out to not be so creepy.
One of those creeps with the heart of gold kind of characters?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Creepy heart of gold guy, yeah.
Well, speaking of heart of gold characters, I'm so happy you were able to join me today. I know you have to go to your movie premiere. We could talk on and on. I hope you'd consider coming back. I'd love to talk more about your advocacy work and other Seinfeld tidbits because I'm a big Seinfeld fan, but I know you have to go. But I want to thank you so much for joining me today, Danny, and I wish you well.
Thanks, Phil. I look forward to maybe talking about some other shows in the future.
That'd be great. Best wishes, my friend.
You too, buddy.
I'd like to thank today's guest, Danny Woodburn. Danny, I know I was nothing back when you were a stand-in for Punky Brewster, so that's why I'm so grateful you took the time to have such a wonderful conversation with me. Best wishes, my friend.
Watching television, watching television.
We hope you've had a dynamite time listening to this edition of Phil's Pop Culture Podcast. Join us again next time for another stroll down memory lane. Until then, let's be careful out there.
Watching television, watching television. Watching television, watching television. Hey, I'm coming over, we won't have to talk. Let all the bright lights come out of the box. Ooh. Watching television, watching television.